You keep telling yourself you're fine. You say it out loud, maybe even smile when you say it. I'm fine. And it sounds believable, at least to everyone else. But somewhere, deep in your chest, something tightens when those words leave your mouth. Not sharp enough to call pain. Not loud enough to explain dot. Just a quiet pressure that doesn't agree with what you're saying. You notice it when the room goes silent dot, when the day finally slows down. When there's nothing left to distract you. You're not crying. You're not falling apart. You're still showing up. Still functioning. Still doing what's expected. And that's what makes this confusing. Because if you're able to laugh, if you're able to work, if you're able to reply, I'm okay, without your voice breaking, then why does everything feel so heavy? It's like you're carrying something invisible, something no one else can see, but you feel it with every breath. A weight that sits behind your ribs, pressing gently but constantly, reminding you it's there. You don't feel dramatic enough to complain. You don't feel broken enough to ask for help. You don't feel sad enough to justify the silence. You keep choosing dot, so you stay quiet. You tell yourself you're just tired, that you've had a long week, that everyone feels like this sometimes. But this doesn't feel like normal tiredness. Sleep doesn't fully fix it. Rest doesn't reach it. Even the good moments feel slightly distant, like you're watching them through glass. You're present, but not fully here. You find yourself wanting distance, even from people you care about, not because they did anything wrong, not because you don't love them. You just don't have the energy to explain what you don't understand yourself, so you pull back a little. You answer shorter. You cancel plans without a strong reason. And afterward, you feel a strange mix of relief and guilt. Relief because silence feels easier. Guilt because you don't know how to explain why. You wonder if maybe this is sadness, but it doesn't fully fit. Sadness has tears. Sadness has a clear emotional color. This feels flatter. Muted. Like someone turned the volume down on your inner world. You wonder if it's burnout, but even that word feels too simple. You're not just exhausted from doing too much. You're exhausted from holding too much. Holding your reactions, holding your thoughts, holding parts of yourself that never quite find the right moment to come out. You wonder if it's just your mood, a phase, something that will pass if you ignore it long enough. So you keep going. You keep saying you're fine. You keep acting normal. You keep minimizing what you feel because you don't want to be that person. But your chest doesn't lie. It tightens when you force a laugh. It feels hollow. When the day ends, it grows heavy when you finally stop moving. That sensation isn't sadness. It's something quieter, something deeper, something that formed slowly without asking for your permission. It's what happens when your mind has taken in more than it had space to process. Not all at once, but over time. Small disappointments you never talked about. Moments you brushed off because it wasn't a big deal. Versions of yourself you had to let go of without fully mourning them. You didn't fall apart when those things happened. You adapted. And at the time, that felt like strength. But adaptation has a cost. Because every time you tell yourself, I'll deal with this later, your mind quietly stores it away. Every time you say, it doesn't matter, a part of you learns not to speak. Every time you choose to stay functional instead of honest, something inside you goes silent. Not gone. Just quiet. This feeling in your chest is that quiet place. It's emotional overload that never got labeled. It's grief that didn't look dramatic enough to be recognized. Is the exhaustion of becoming someone new without acknowledging who you used to be. You didn't lose yourself suddenly. You slowly outgrew old versions of you, and no one taught you how to say goodbye. So your mind did what it's designed to do when things become too much. It protected you. It softened your emotions so they wouldn't overwhelm you. It created distance so you wouldn't feel everything all at once. It made numbness feel safer than intensity. Not because you're weak, but because you're human. When expression feels risky, silence feels safer. When emotions feel complicated, your mind chooses quiet. When you don't have words, your body holds the feeling instead. That's why it lives in your chest. You feel it. When you're alone at night. When you stare at your phone without scrolling. When you sit in a room and suddenly feel disconnected, even though nothing is wrong. You're not empty. You're full of things that never got a voice. And you keep noticing it over and over again. You wake up and feel neutral, not bad, just off. You talk to someone and feel slightly distant, even when you care. You accomplish something and feel less satisfaction than you expected. Again and again, you think, why doesn't this feel the way it should? You replay conversations in your head, wondering if you've changed. You question whether you're becoming colder, quieter, harder to reach. But you're not losing emotion. You're conserving it. You're in a pause, not a failure, a protective space, not a collapse. Your mind is taking a breath because it didn't get one when it needed it most. That's why motivation feels low. That's why excitement feels delayed. That's why joy arrives, but doesn't always stay. You're not broken. You're tired and away rest. Alone can't touch. And there's nothing wrong with you for being here. This phase doesn't need fixing. It doesn't need forcing. It doesn't need you to pretend you're okay faster. It needs space. Space to stop explaining yourself. Space to stop labeling everything. Space to let the pressure in your chest exist without arguing with it. You don't have to dig into it tonight. You don't have to understand it all at once. You don't even have to talk about it. Sometimes awareness is enough. Sometimes just knowing this isn't sadness, and I'm not imagining it, is the first moment of relief. You've been strong for a long time in very quiet ways. You've carried more than you realize without letting it spill. And maybe that tightness in your chest isn't asking you to do anything at all. Maybe it's just reminding you that something inside you wants to be noticed, not fixed, not judged, just acknowledged. So the next time you say, I'm fine, and your chest doesn't agree, you don't have to correct it. You don't have to explain it. You can just sit with the truth that you're in between something, between who you were and who you're becoming, between holding it together and finally letting yourself rest emotionally. And maybe that's not something to rush. Maybe it's something to listen to, quietly,